This is Money, Motivation, and Mike, and I am your host, Michael Wainwright. In charge of all the controls is Jason Wright. And hello to you, world. This is the show that will change your life. You can contact us at info@mx3.vip and find all of our new content at mx3.vip or on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/@mx3podcast. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified of all of our new content, which comes out every Monday morning around 9 o'clock. Jason, the United States of America has spoken. Trump, 312 electoral votes. Harris, 226 electoral votes. Now, this is not today's topic. I'm going to get into the media. I want to get into the response after the election, during the election, after the election, etc. on the media. And I want to go back and I want to look at some of these numbers in 2012, 2016, and 2020. But first I'm going to tell you this, and I'm back on my rant about the Electoral College. And I will tell you this. The candidate that I have voted for in every election that I have voted, which is 1980, the second, I would have been able to vote in the second Reagan term. So I would have been able to vote then. That would be my first time to vote for the president. The candidate that I voted for either won with the popular vote or lost with the less popular vote. So what I'm saying is the candidate that I voted for was right on track with the popular vote and the Electoral College. That being said, so that you know, whenever I'm diving back into the Electoral College here, that it's not because of negative results that I personally have received, or for that matter, anybody around me. Living in the state of Texas, whether you like it or not, you're going to vote for the Republican candidate. That's just the way it is. And just like in Oklahoma, you live in California, you're going to vote for the Democratic candidate. It doesn't matter who the candidate is. It could be Bugs Bunny. That's who you're voting for, because that's how that state votes. A majority of Americans, more than 60%, support abolishing the Electoral College, according to a September report by the Pew Research Center. This number has been as high as 81% in 1968, 75% in 1981, and the only time below 60%, which is where we are now, was 58% in 1967. The American people do not care for the Electoral College, nor do I, as you already know. Now, moving forward. And these are some of the headlines that have came out Wednesday. And I want to stress this to you. Tuesday night, as I am watching the election results come in, and being a person who tries to see all the sides and listen to all the sides, as we talk about on this show, gather all the information, and you can make the best decision. I watched NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, and Fox. I flipped them back and forth all the time, checking out what each one of those particular stations. I then, on Wednesday morning, got up because I did not stay up for the final tally. I went to bed about midnight. But it did seem like Donald J. Trump was in control of becoming the 47th president of the United States. So nevertheless, I get up on Wednesday morning and I go through the same channels: ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, CNN. Now, what is astonishing to me, Jason, is as you flip through these channels, every one of them has a different number of electoral votes that the Democrat and the Republican candidates, what their number was at that particular time. Every station had a different number. Now, they would eventually catch up, but as soon as they caught up, another station would flip over here. I mean, there's discrepancy of up to 50 electoral votes between this station and this station. How does that not influence the U.S. American citizen registered voter? It does. How can you say that you are unbiased? You can't. The media makes the news. They don't report the news. And I'm sick and tired of it. And I'm going to tell you what else. 71 million people who voted don't believe what they have been hearing on the media. Here's some of the headlines. This is the Fort Worth Star. The only thing bigger in this election than Trump's comeback is the media's self-owned opinion. Here's the New York Post. The media owes Trump an apology and about face in his second term. Now, I think what they were looking at was the same thing I was looking at. In this particular case, it just happened to be Trump this time. But how can you go from President Biden in 2020 winning by over 7 million votes in the popular vote to in 2024 Trump winning by 5.6 million votes against Biden's running mate, Kamala Harris, the vice president? That is a 600,000 vote flip in the popular vote. How does that happen? Well, I'm going to give you some other numbers here just momentarily. But back on these particular stations, the Media Research Center found while 93% of the show's Trump coverage was negative. 93%. That would also include a Fox, who is more or less a conservative TV station, in my opinion, which isn't right either. 93%. And in 4 years, the vote flip was 12,600,000 votes. Is that an indictment on the previous 4 years' administration? I would think so. Gallup poll in October found that a meager 31% of Americans trust the mass media to report the news fully, accurately, and fairly. An all-time low in media. It's surprising the number is even that high, in my opinion, after what the media does, and that is relentlessly characterize a candidate who is on a path of one way or another. They take that and they run. Now, in this particular case with Trump, and remember, these are not my numbers. These are numbers that have came off from surveys, etc. And obviously, big-time operations like the New York Post, and just like I mentioned a while ago, the Fort Worth Star. I did not give the article, the writers. Fort Worth Star in this particular article is Cynthia Allen, and the New York Post author is Carol Markowitz. So these are the ladies who wrote these articles. Oh, and by the way, 2 ladies wrote those articles, Jason. And I think we've already heard that the outcome of the election was against women's rights. It was against the women in general. And the first 2 articles that I've brought out here today, a woman is the author of that particular article. America clearly did not buy into what they were hearing and seeing from our media sources. Instead, they elected Trump, who got defeated by 7 million votes 4 years ago. They reelected him in a rout. Jason, a rout. Is he owed an apology? As are all of the Republican voters that the current sitting president called garbage, I believe, last week. Give me a break. This is astonishing right here. Remember, the media is unbiased. They're to report news, not make news. A 2023 study out of the Syracuse University's Newhouse School of Public Communications found that just 3.4% of American journalists identify as Republicans. 3.4%. National Public Radio's Washington, D.C. headquarters has 87 registered Democrats working in editorial positions. How many of you think are Republican? Got 87 registered Democratic working in editorial positions, Jason, at the National Public Radio Washington, D.C. headquarters. How many are zero? How many are, I just gave you the answer. How many are Republican? Zero.
Yeah.
I was going to say very few, though.
The Free Press reported this in April. Okay. If the New York Times, now this is going back to the New York Post, obviously they're in competitors with each other. If the New York Times wants to woefully left-leaning paper, it needs to give up the charade that it's trying to represent all sides or report the news in a dispassionate way. Also quoted by the New York Post, an outcome that arrived not just as an embarrassment for the press, but as an indictment. And I believe that too. And here is what I'm referring to. And it goes back to that Wednesday morning of listening to these newscasters. Jason, as they were announcing some of these results and coming to the realization that Donald Trump is going to be the president again, some of these announcers were almost in tears and embarrassment that your listening audience, the majority of your listening audience, has elected this particular person to be the president of the United States. And you come on there and you're going to show your feelings because your candidate obviously did not get elected. Or maybe is it also that the soon-to-be president coming in January will go back to holding the media accountable again, as he did from 16 to 20. Now, I want you to think about this. This is how bad and where the media is right now. We go back to January the 6th, 2021. It was a dark day. Everybody has their opinion of who led the charge up there. But at the end of the day, it started at a Trump rally. It ended at the Capitol. For the last 4 years, people have been arrested, been on trial, been to prison, and all of that has fell at the footsteps of Donald Trump. The guy who just won president by over 5.6 million votes. So, once again, at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own actions. Just because I tell you to go jump off the house, we've talked about this before, don't mean you're going to go jump off the house. Okay? And no one has ever said that they heard Donald Trump say, go charge the Capitol. What they have said, what he has said is be heard and be represented, that you're not happy with the results. And you think that there has been some tampering. And I'm fixing to cover that here in a minute too. But he gets all the credit or the blame, however you want to say it, for this rushing our nation's capital and causing vandalism. It was all bad. But the American government, the American public just elected him to the government. The media on that particular day and the weeks afterwards, even up till now, has put all that blame at his feet, right or wrong, and tried to convince the general public that this is a bad, bad person. A racist. Jason, have they not used the word racist on shows?
Near daily.
Exactly. I'm fixing to give you some numbers on how the black vote, Latino vote, and other vote has come up. Do you know he gained in every one of those areas?
Yes.
From what was voted in 2020. So the more times the national media called him a racist, the more his numbers went up in minority votes. Those numbers don't add up. Makes no sense. No sense at all. No sense at all.
I think the American people are seeing through it.
Well, I am certain they're seeing through it by casting their vote. They have missed the Trump phenomenon. And they've also swore they weren't going to go back and be shamed again, according to the New York Post. But here we are. Here we are. And like I told you about the 93%, listen at this. Now, New York Post is calling for an apology. Apology to the Trump voters who obviously right now dominate the United States of America. Okay? They're also saying that in the future, news outlets, radio, TV, etc., hire sane commentators who don't hate either candidate. And then perhaps you can arrive at step 3, the presentation of the news in an unbiased manner. Oh, I think we're far gone from that, Jason. But I don't know that it matters.
They're going to have to fire everybody.
They are.
Start fresh.
Yes.
Because they can't be trusted.
Well, it's like this. When a team's not winning, what do? They clean house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's time to clean house in a lot of areas. And maybe on this show right here, Money, Motivation, and Mike, maybe we need to be the leader in media reform, media setting up new laws and guidelines that we have had for many years and not been enforced. Maybe we need to go back and be the leader in this, like the equal time rule. You familiar with the equal time rule?
I've heard something of it.
Number 47 of the U.S. Code, 315, candidates for public office, specifies that the American radio and television broadcast stations must provide equivalent access to competing political candidates. This means, for example, if a station broadcasts a message by a candidate, it must offer the same amount of time on the same terms in, say, prime time to opposing candidates. Right there. That's the equal time rule. And this goes back to 1934. Communications Act of 1934.
That doesn't say whether it has to be good or bad.
There's also a Radio Act in 1927. How about that?
So they can give them all the coverage they want, but they're going to make it all negative?
The Federal Radio Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, we're approaching 100 years of them governing. And look where we are today, 100 years later. We may be taking this show on the road. We may be going to the House and the Senate, who, by the way, looks and appears that the Republicans are going to have the majority in the House, have the majority in the Senate, and obviously a Republican president. By the way, Jason, did you know in this racist world we live in that we have 2 black female senators now in the Senate for the first time ever? Now, 2 don't sound like much compared to 100, but it's more than there was in there last week. But we're still, in lots of eyes, going backwards when it comes to racism and not forward. We have 2 black females going to be senators in the Senate. Continuing on here. You seem like you have something to say down there on the other end of the table.
I just on this whole beat about the media, I can remember a time growing up that we just didn't think about race at all. It was not a big deal. And for some reason, all of a sudden, it's over the last 10 years, I guess, it seems like it's at the forefront of everything.
I'm 55 years old. I grew up taking showers with blacks and whites since I was 13 years old in the locker room. It was no big deal.
Didn't think anything of it.
We gave each other the business. We joked around, and we had our 40th anniversary of a state championship that we won in 1984 here within the last month. You go in there and you hug on those guys like you were 15 years old again. And they call you brother and you call them brother because that's what we were. And you knew there's guys in that room. If I was going into an alley, I would not have to explain to them why we were doing it. Their mics, their mics, they got mics back, and they're going. That I never felt any racism, animosity. Now, I'm not saying that that doesn't exist, because it does.
Yeah.
I have been fortunate with my black, white combo, etc. My best friend in grade school, and I've said this before, I think, on this show, was a Native American. Still talk to him to this day. He works for the Choctaws. Best friend in grade school. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah, we grew up, didn't think anything of it, and it just seems like they're making it a thing at this point.
Here is why, number one, the media needs to change, because obviously the listening and viewing public does not trust them. But here's also, with shows just like ourselves, Jason, it's probably too late, as quoted. They have squandered their influence and the public's goodwill and have honestly been replaced by social media, X, podcasts, YouTube, etc. This article actually says CNN will shut down before Trump's term is over, losing too much money. And only Jeff Bezos' money is keeping the Washington Post afloat. But then it says CNN and MSNBC will not go away. They are good for another 4 years, thanks to Trump. They are where people go and place where the Trump haters can take their fake news. Good stuff. Good stuff. I've got other things here about CBS and how they are, how they have edited some things with Vice President Harris, I believe 60 Minutes, and also they were also on Face the Nation. Yeah, Face the Nation. And like I was talking to you off the air, 60 Minutes, CBS News under fire for editing some stuff that went on in an hour interview of Vice President Harris by Bill Whitaker. Bill Whitaker did the interview. Yeah. All right.
Yep.
And like I told you, if you watched NFL football, and as soon as it went off, here comes 60 Minutes. And just out of the fact of you wandering around in your house, in your kitchen, in your living room, without adjusting the TV to another station, you're forced to listen to 60 Minutes. And I watched a lot of 60 Minutes. And it was hardcore, good quality, credible info. Or at least that's the way I looked at it. I looked at it as a major network media brand. I guess that's why it still exists to this day. But they're under fire for editing. And are they editing for the political gain of a candidate? Now, back like I was telling you about how this number has flipped, I have not been one of those people that have felt that Trump lost the election in 2020 because it was stolen from him through voter fraud. I have not been one of those people. Now, let me also tell you what we have came up here with the Democratic presidential candidates' votes over the last 4 elections, going all the way back to 2012, Obama's second term. A little over 65 million Democrats voted in 2012. 2016, Hillary Clinton. A little over 65 million Democrats voted in 2016. 2024, I skipped 2020. 2024, a little over 66 million Democrats voted in the presidential election.
Pretty steady rate there,
Yes.
65, 66 million.
Yeah, coming along. Did you know in 2020, over 81 million Democrats voted in 2020?
Well, they come out of the woodworks, didn't they?
They come out of the woodworks, and Biden received 7 more million votes than did Donald J. Trump in 2020. Now, like I told you, never been one that's cried spilt milk over a election and voter fraud, etc. But what else do these numbers show you? How on God's green earth, Jason, that in 2016, the Democrats got more than 15 million more people to the polls in 4 years. And in 4 more years, they lost those 15 million back to their norm. How does that happen?
It's a good question.
How it, well, okay, let's just say it wasn't voter fraud. That many Democrats are disgusted with the current administration that they won't even go vote. Is that what it says?
You got that many registered Democrats that they can go, 75 million can go vote, and then all of a sudden they don't.
In a 4 election span.
And what was did you have the Republicans?
No.
Did they switch over to vote for Republican?
No, it wasn't worthy of the difference. It wasn't worthy of bringing to the show. 15 million votes up in a 4-year period and back down to its norm 4 years later. Maybe they were so disgusted with the current administration, or maybe did they believe that the Democratic Party was so strong that 25+% of the population of the Democratic Party did not need to show up to vote. They had something else to do during the last month of this election.
Something was more important.
Something was more important. Now, back on these media gurus. And it's like, once again, you're supposed to report the news, not make it. I'm listening to one of the economists on a particular station, and I've narrowed it down to 5, but I'm not going to say which one it was. And this lady was talking about the same economy that Trump's been complaining about throughout this election will be the same economy that's going to be perfect here in just a couple of weeks. Now, all I can tell you is the day after the election, the market had one of its best years and best days in quite some time. I can also tell you through some home builders that I've talked to that did not receive a showing on a house in the month of October. The day after the election are getting offers on homes, have showings going on homes because of this pitiful economy that we were in. It was the same economy last month. It was the same economy before Halloween. It's the same economy today, but we have different leadership in place, or is fixing to be in place. Here come January.
They were concerned about the days ahead, but once they knew Trump was in, no longer concerned.
Houses were being sold at higher interest rates than we have right now throughout the year of 2024. We get up to the election, Biden pulls out, Harris gets in, disarray in the Democratic Party. The media comes out virtually every day saying the Democratic nominee is ahead of the Republican nominee. Everybody gets excited. The results are totally flipped. Remember how close this race has been advertised? It's neck and neck. I believe that too. It wasn't neck and neck.
Nope.
Be careful. Be careful what you listen to. Do your homework. And obviously you don't do your homework by listening to media. And I can tell you, 5 stations Saturday night, 5 stations Tuesday night, 5 stations Wednesday morning, the same 5. Different views on everything, including how many votes it came in. Now, I do not understand why there is such a delay in voter counting. And I vote in the state of Texas. It's where I'm a registered voter. And my experience, I always vote on election day. I do not early vote. I want to go on election day. I want to feel it. I want to see it. How many people are coming out, etc. I also don't go at 6:30 at night. I don't understand that either. How you can show up at 6:30 when you've had a month to vote and it's 8 o'clock. Most posts close down at 7 o'clock of their time zone. And how you can't show up until 6:30 to vote and you delay the process. I understand that's part of the delay. But in my experience, you go in, you show your driver's license. You have to show identification in the state of Texas.
Makes sense, right?
I was appalled when I got into this next topic here. Of the states, you do not have to show a photo ID. And in the states, you don't have to show an ID, period. Would you believe California is one of them?
I'm not surprised.
Would you believe New York is?
Yes.
Incredible. I guess that's how, Jason, as the polls close, these news stations can throw up 60 plus electoral votes, 70, for a Democrat because they've already called California, Oregon, and Washington as the polls closed. When they don't have hardly any, how can you have the votes tallied at 7 o'clock local time and announce a winner? And on the East Coast, where the polls closed 3 hours earlier, they're still counting votes. Now, as we talked off the air, I go in, they give you a card. They see your ID. You go over to the machine. Texas is computerized. You push the buttons. Then you review it. Then you print it. Then you go over and you stick it into a machine. Looks like a Scantron machine, but obviously it's not a Scantron. And then I asked the lady after I submitted my votes, now, how long does it take for my vote to get counted? She goes, your vote's already been counted right there. See that little time clock? It's already gone. So where does it go? National elections, it goes straight to Austin in Texas. Local polls goes straight to the county seat because that's who's interested in counting those local elections. So before I got in my car, my vote had already been counted and on the books in the state of Texas for the President of the United States and the Vice President, of course. How can you not do this in every state? How come right now we have not decided all of the House seats? And they're like 25, 30 at the recording of this show that still have not been decided with all the count.
Yeah, there's still states right now that do not have the full 100% of the vote in.
And they're not even counting the whole nation.
Yeah.
For a presidential election. So if you go in there and you vote, I mean, you don't, as far as I know, you don't do it here. You don't go in there and get a ballot for the local and a ballot for the president and a ballot for the national and a ballot for whatever else is on there, abortion, etc. It all is all on the same ballot. Is that how you understand it, Jason?
Yeah. And well, in Oklahoma, we had the state and federal, and we had a separate ballot for local.
Okay.
But you, like here in Texas, you end up putting that piece of paper into your Scantron.
Mm-hmm. Machine.
Yep, put it in, and it counts it right then. And then I put the second one in, counts it right then. So it's all instantaneous.
Okay, so
now we just didn't have the fancy touch button machine to print out our ballot.
Well, we're big league down here in Texas.
Yeah, I understand.
Yes.
I had to use a nice little pen to fill in all my boxes.
Pen or number 2 lead pencil?
No, it's pen. They didn't want somebody erasing it off of there.
Pencils and sharpeners are more expensive than pens.
Yeah, somebody might go in there and start erasing some blocks.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. I know some candidates for that. My point is, how can each one of these states turn in their presidential numbers and not have their local numbers for their state and House of Representatives, Senate and House of Representatives candidates? How can you not do that?
There's no good reason. I mean, short of a machine malfunction or something like that, and then somebody having to actually hand count those, right? But that'd be kind of the worst case scenario, but I don't see that that's really happening much.
And I must be naive or dumb. How can you cast a vote without showing a photo ID? So does that mean you do not have to show an ID in the state of California?
Walk in, give your name, probably a date of birth or something to that effect, right?
Walk in, tell them I'm Paul Newman.
Yeah.
The actor?
How do they know? Right?
Yes.
It does. There's no logical reason for not having voter ID.
It's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be that some of these swing states are the states that you don't have to have. Now, it's not just California and Oregon and Washington. You know, you got Nevada in here, New Mexico, like I said, New York, Maine, all those eastern states from basically Washington, D.C. up. You can go in with no ID and vote. Incredible. Wisconsin, same thing. I've got more things to talk about, Jason, but you know, we have once again exhausted another show. And good logical information. Obviously, I'm not a media person. By this election, it's reminded me why I don't watch the news.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. Freaking incredible. So, the demographics and the voters, the race, the whites, the blacks, the Latinos, the others, the age brackets. We're going to cover that on the next show. You can always find us at info@mx3.vip or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@mx3podcast. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified by Jason of all of our new content coming out every Monday morning. And you can always email us, info@mx3.vip, and I expect there to be some more emails in the box here shortly after this show is released. So once again, for everyone who's been a part of Money, Motivation, and Mike, continue to live your life the right way.